to inform folks out there about what's going on. The landlord-tenant process has changed significantly from what it was before the pandemic. Some of you may have some familiarity with it, many of you don't. It is all remote right now, and it is going to remain all remote indefinitely. Right now, landlord-tenant cases involve two mandatory court appearances. The first one is a pretrial appearance. That's a notice you will receive saying, please appear virtually for a conference. This is not your trial date. This is a date where you and the other party, landlord and tenant, will appear together and have an opportunity to hash out what the case is about with landlord-tenant legal specialist. This is a judiciary employee who's neutral and whose function is to help the parties figure out what's going on with the case. They're also there to perhaps help you settle the case. And a word about settlement. Settlement is a common theme in these kinds of cases. And we're going to talk about the law, we're going to talk about process. But underlying all of this is the possibility of settlement at all times. And it's going to come up over and over again. The parties to a suit have the opportunity to resolve the suit between themselves in any way they want, provided that it's allowed by law. And they've got a lot more creativity available to them than a judge does. When a judge has an eviction case in front of him or her, a judge has two choices. Dismiss the case because the landlord can't prove they're entitled to evict the tenant, or evict the tenant because the landlord has proven they have that legal right based on the facts in front of the court. If you're settling a case, if you're negotiating an outcome, you're free to negotiate pretty much anything you'd like. A repayment plan, a discounted rent, an agreed upon move-out date, all sorts of options that aren't available to the court when they are presented with your case. Now I have a list of questions here, and I have my own agenda. Mayor, would you like me to work off those questions, or would you like me to go off my agenda?
Well, look, we're going to do it two ways, right? I want you to work off your agenda, but I have a few also that some of these questions folks sent to us. So I just want to kind of get them answered.
I think we should deal with that first, because you know your community's needs, so I'll follow your lead,
Thank you so much. So it says, so many people are still unemployed or haven't been hit hard financially during this pandemic. What additional financial resources are out there, and where can one go to search for these resources?
To Judge Moore's point earlier, the Division of Community Affairs, Department of Community Affairs, excuse me,
Yes, sir.
is that is the threshold to start the inquiry about what's available. The telephone number for assistance by phone is 609-490-4550. But the best way to get information quickly and to determine whether or not you qualify is to go to COVID-19, that's COVID-19.gov/pages, PAGES/renter. That is the email address, or excuse me, the website that will give you information on whether or not you're eligible. You can go to that website and start the process of applying for rental assistance.
Okay, great. Are attorneys needed to handle evictions cases on behalf of the landlord or tenant?
Well, it's always good to have a lawyer. I don't change my own oil because I'd cause the car to blow up if I did, but not everyone can afford a lawyer.
Right.
If you are a corporation, you must have an attorney. You can't proceed on your own if you're a corporation. And of course, most tenants aren't corporations unless they're businesses.
Right.
But many landlords are. They must have attorneys. Tenants are not required to have attorneys, although of course it's always encouraged. The court can't give you legal advice, but every day when we start the court trial call, we always provide an overview of landlord-tenant law and legal processes to give tenants a sense of what they're up against.
Right. Tell the folks what's the role of an ombudsman.
The ombudsman in our county, Sarah Hatcher, is the point person for information that the public needs regarding both court operations and other public services that might be relevant to court operations.
Right.
The ombudsman doesn't provide legal advice, but they can refer you to legal resources that you can contact and inquire about the availability of legal assistance or financial assistance. Sarah Hatcher and her team, they're a gateway to a whole lot of information, including court customer service and various social and public services.
Wow, that is great. That is great to hear. Now, is there a way to avoid eviction even after notice has been issued to a tenant.
All right, so let's talk about that. An eviction notice is not an official term, and it could encompass a lot of different things. If you haven't paid your rent, your landlord doesn't have to give you any warning that they're going to sue you for eviction. If they want to evict you for other reasons, unrelated to rent, New Jersey law requires that they give you at least one, and sometimes two, written notices.
Great.
If you are actually about to be evicted, and you have a notice posted on your door that says they're coming to lock you out, that's called a warrant of removal.
Okay.
And only a court can issue a warrant of removal, and only after a judgment has been entered. A warrant will never be issued and can't be issued unless a judgment has already been entered in the landlord's favor. That usually happens after trial, but it can happen if someone fails to show up and a judgment is entered by default.
That's my point that I made about participating in the process.
Right.
Get your notices, don't ignore it, participate in the process.
Okay.
Then you know what's going on. You
Right.
can get the resources, but if you ignore it, that'll ultimately what's going to happen.
The game's not over if you get that notice, though. If you get that notice on your door, and it says, we're coming to lock you out in 3 days, even if you participated in the trial and are panicked because maybe you have no place to go or you can't get out in 3
Right,
days,
right.
or maybe you weren't aware there was a trial, notice never made it to you, even though
Right.
our records show it does. You should come down to 50 West Market Street, and you can make an emergent application. It's called an order to show cause. That order to show cause is a way to present your case to the judge on an expedited basis. And depending upon the facts, you may be entitled to some additional relief. Maybe a week of extra time, or depending on the circumstances, the judgment could be vacated and you could get a do-over for those cases where default. On the facts, every case is different.
But you will be heard
If
by
I
the judge.
may-
Yes.
And if I may say also that even after a judgment purpose,
Participated, and it involves non-payment of rent. You have the right to pay all the rent that the court has found to be due by the end of the day, or up to 3 days after that lockout. So if you can muster the rent, if you can get the money together, you have a right to pay that rent and get back in up to 3 days after the lockout actually happens.
That is good news. That is good news. So Honorable Petrello, you can go ahead with it. I just wanted to make sure that some of those questions that was rolled out to us get answered.
Thank you,
I know
Mayor.
folks sitting on our live meeting tonight.
And a very important feature of this process, the new landlord-tenant process, is a law that was enacted on August the 4th. The legislature passed a law, Governor Murphy signed it. This law allows certain tenants to apply for a dismissal of their case. And there are two categories of tenants. If you are a tenant and your household income is 120% or less the area median income, and that varies by zip code, you can apply through that same DCA website to have the case against you dismissed, the landlord-tenant case, if it is a non-payment of rent case and the rent arose as past due between March 1st, 2020 and August 31st, 2021. You can get the entire case dismissed if your income level is in that range and if the rent arose during that period. Now, that doesn't mean you're off the hook for the rent. What it means is you can't be evicted for failing to pay rent during that period of time. However, under that same law, your landlord can file a lawsuit against you and get a money damages verdict for the rent that you owe. The landlord would then be able to garnish your wages, levy your bank account, and go after your assets, but could not evict you for past due rent if it was during that period of time. Now, if your income is lower, and if you fall into the category of families whose income is below 80% of the area median income, Your protection extends until the end of 2021. And you will have to certify on that DCA website as to a couple of additional criteria. Not only your income, but that you experienced COVID hardship and that you applied for rental assistance. That certification will ask you for certain information. That will then be transmitted to the court.
Okay.
And the case will be dismissed.
Wow.
Again, you will be liable for the rent in a lawsuit for money damages, but you cannot be evicted for rent that fell behind during the period March 1st, 2020 through August 2021 or the end of December 2021. Which deadline applies to you depends on your income. This law is complicated, and it doesn't happen by magic. So if you qualify under these criteria, you have to apply for this relief. It will not happen automatically. And as Judge Moore and Judge Venable have already made clear, you have to come to court if you get a court notice. Merely applying might not be enough. Show up, help yourself, take advantage of what's been created in the law to protect you from eviction.
And thank you for that, Honorable Judge. So look, before I want to kind of get Dawn Freeman, Assistant Civil Division Manager, also for us to say a few words, but I just want to remind folks, thank you for joining us on our weekly town hall meeting. We are very honored to have all of you. Tonight, we are having a deep conversation about landlord and tenant rights. Ever since our governor took the restrictions off and lifted, we know that there have been several people right here in the city of East Orange been calling my office asking about these questions. So we wanted to make sure we brought the experts in here tonight. So what I want to do, Dawn Freeman, how you doing?
Hello.
How's everything? Dawn, we want to give you an opportunity also to chime in on the conversation, because I know that you've been so helpful in making sure that folks get the right information, and you've been working with the city of East Orange. So if you want to just chime in for a few, please do so.
So I just want to say thank you, Mayor, for having us join, inviting us to speak. And I'm just going to reiterate what has already been said by Judge Venable, Judge Moore, and Judge Petrillo. Please do not ignore any court notice. Anything that you receive, if you're unsure of, please give the court a call, find out what's going on. We can provide you with information, and just assist you regarding that notice and any of your scheduled proceedings. But do not ignore those notices.
And we thank you for that, and thank you for even putting an extra, question mark on that, because I know that sometimes folks feel that things going to go away when it comes to these evictions or comes to these notices. And look, we know how hard it is for folks sometimes to receive a notice and feel under pressure. But we also want folks to know that there's laws, right? And you just can't take the laws in your own hand. You heard both of our judges tell you there's a process, right? And if you follow that process, we hopefully that it can turn out right for you. But if you don't follow the process, it can kind of get a little twisted and a little ugly. So, Judge, is there any other information that you want to provide?
One other point, Mayor, and it was to your comment about how this has affected people.
Yes.
As the presiding judge, I'm responsible for the numbers, to evaluate how many cases we have, to assign judges.
Okay.
We've assigned 6 judges to this docket. We have over, pending in Essex County, 17,000 cases now that are pending to be heard.
Judge, repeat those numbers, that number again, please.
Currently, and this is Dawn's world, he gives me these numbers every day, 17,929 cases are pending. And I asked Dawn to break out cases that involve citizens in East Orange. And she's advised me there are 3,289 East Orange landlord-tenant cases pending. So if you're among those folks, don't feel alone. There are a lot of people in your circumstance. And, I know it's a hard situation, but if you if you follow what we're saying, you're gonna get the full protection of the law.
17,900 people are being evicted.
Absolutely.
And those numbers, if I may say, probably go up every day.
Go up every day.
And we gotta find a way. I know, being the mayor here in the city of East Orange, we, always talked about how we provide, assistance and referrals. So that, I wish we can know what number is in East Orange,
Oh,
Do you have the number
yeah,
in
that's
East
the number
Orange?
for East Orange, is 3,289 East Orange.
3,280?
89
That's people who are being evicted.
in East Orange who have been filed a complaint for landlord-tenant against.
That's a high number.
That's substantial.
Right? Wow.
It's about 20% of what our volume is.
You mentioned the point, which I think,
And
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Judge.
And I know you have more to go, but I'd like to also say that there is, for calling in the virtual case management conference and trial date procedures, you can contact Special Civil Part Landlord Tenant Trial Team at 973-776-9300, extension 56897. Again, 973-776-9300, extension 56897.
56897.
We have specialists to try to work out settlement agreements. The courts have hired specialists to help with trying to settle the matter between the landlord and tenant. And you wanted that number again?
Yes, Judge Vanderbilt, can you just repeat that number again? Because it's so important that folks get these numbers, and also important for us to have them when folks call us at our office and at my office.
973-776-9300, extension 56897. And that's the courthouse. So you call Special Civil Part. And that's the landlord-tenant trial team. So you can call that number. And we will send you, Mayor. Dawn has done an excellent job in giving out, providing a packet with the legal resources and social service resources. We'll send that to you, Mayor, so that you can distribute it or put it on whatever boards that you have.
Thank you so much, Judge. We appreciate that. Judge?
I just wanted to add that you made a point about how things can get awkward if not done right.
Right.
And I don't think the importance of that point can be overstated. There's a lot of frustration out there on the part of a lot of folks. It's been a difficult almost 2 years. A tenant cannot be locked out of their home unless a court has issued an order that allows it, and even then, only a court officer can conduct the lockout. It is a crime for a landlord to lock out a tenant on their own. You cannot take it upon yourself, if you are a landlord, to simply change the locks on someone's home or to cut off the utilities that are included in their tenancy. That is against the law. The police can be called and you can be charged with a crime, and under the statute, the police are required to facilitate your re-entry. Unless a judge has signed an order and a court officer has carried out the eviction, it is a very, very bad idea for a landlord to engage in what's called self-help, and you are strongly discouraged from doing so.
Right. And Judge Petrello, and I'm glad you kind of brought up that point. What type of form or what color of the paper when people are being evicted do it look like? What can I, if I was a tenant and my landlord came up and said, hey, I'm evicted you, I got a court order. What do that form look like?
Well, it comes on white paper.
White paper.
And it's called, on the top, in small font, it's called a warrant of removal.
Right.
It's going to say that first of all, the landlord can't give it to you. Only the court officer
That's
can
the
give it to
question
you.
I was asking.
So number one, if a warrant of removal has been issued,
Right.
and I'm about to be evicted from my apartment, my landlord can't hand that to me.
Okay.
My landlord can't hang it on my door. The
Okay.
court officer has to hang it. The court's name has to be on it and signed by the court officer. and it comes on a multiple pages of paper. Dawn could say exactly how many because it recently increased. And then it says 3 days. It'll have usually written in the date when it will be executed. The execution of that warrant is when the court officer comes back and actually says, now it's time to go, when you're actually evicted.
Right.
During that period of time, as I said, you can come down to court and attempt to seek relief. And if you're illegally locked out, if your landlord just takes it upon itself to lock you out in a way that isn't allowed by law, you can also come to court and ask for emergency relief and an order to be allowed back in.
And with that, just say for instance, right, that I don't come down to the court and I came over to police department. Is the police department able to say, hold up, hey John, you can't lock Mary out without a court order, so tonight you gotta let her back in or him back in?
According to the Attorney General's guidance and the law, the police are directed to assist tenants who have been illegally locked out because it is a crime for a tenant to be illegally locked out.
Thank you so much.
That's been a change in the law.
Right.
That was not the law
If I could just
before.
say one more thing on that point, Mayor.
Yes.
However, if there is like criminal mischief, harassment, or anything of that nature, then and there could still be eviction proceedings, but there is a separation if there are, other than non-payment of rent, where the police can get involved if there's like I said, damage to property, harassment, assault, things like that. Sometimes that ties in with landlord-tenant, but that does not mean that the police will not get involved, because then they will get involved.
Wow, thank you. I mean, this information that all of you have provided tonight, I think is so essential because, you know, sometimes when my office does get a call, really y'all just helped us to really even explain this thing even more clearly, so that way we don't leave folks out there on false pretense, because we're very careful about what we say to a tenant or what we say to a landlord, because sometimes, you know, if we say the wrong thing, it can be interpreted to say, no, the mayor said this, or a landlord can say, the mayor said this. So I appreciate this information. What I want to do, you know, look, normally our shows are an hour, and it seems like when you're having so much information and so much individuals here that's providing information, time do fly, right? But what I want to do to give each of you just an opportunity, if there's some things that you want to talk about that we didn't talk about, and we just go around from all the judges and then Dawn, and then what I want to do tonight is just give Dr. Griffin an opportunity to close out with some of our updates. So I'm going to ask the judges if there's some other things that we didn't talk about, that we need to talk about. There's some numbers that y'all can provide, other than the numbers that you didn't provide, and so we can post them. And what I would like to do is have a part 2 to this conversation, if y'all don't mind, right? Because I think that the times that we are really dealing with, and the questions, even though we may have answered quite a few questions tonight with people who posted, there still are uncertainties out there, right? And then you gave us a number here in East Orange, 3,280 people filed for eviction. That means that landlords filed for those evictions here. And what really kind of comes to my mind is that, especially as the mayor and the council and folks here in the community, some of these people we're going to have to help. Some of these people we're going to have to be able to provide resources, right? But we're hoping that the judge say, you know what, most of these people are able to come up with their money, their rent, and these people don't get evicted. But we have to think on both sides of the aisle sometimes when it happens like this. And wow, this is interesting. So I'm going to leave the floor open. If there's anything that you didn't talk about, Judge.
I think, Mayor, you already identified, there's a lot of information here, and it can be overwhelming for some people. I would point out, sort of to Judge Venable's point, if you are a person who's being sued for eviction for something other than non-payment of rent, that's a whole other kettle of fish. if your landlord is alleging that you broke the rules and regulations or you violated the lease, you are still exposed to eviction regardless of the rent situation. Even if you're current on your rent, if you've somehow violated the rules of your tenancy. So that's important to
Yes,
understand.
yes.
There are also different rules that apply and different laws that apply. If you live in a 2 or 3 family house where the owner lives on site versus if you live in a larger building or an apartment complex.
Right.
If you're in a smaller home, like a 2 or 3 family owner occupied home, your legal protections are very different and they're less than if you live in a larger building or a complex. The cause that a landlord has to evict you is very different. And these are important considerations.
Yeah.
Each one is a lengthy conversation.
Yes, it is. And that's why I'm asking, and I have to be honest, I would love for us to come back and have another discussion, because as the judge said, it's so lengthy, right? And everybody's situation is different.
Everyone
right?
is different, Mayor, absolutely. And both Judge Petrillo and I, and with the guidance and leadership of Judge Venable, are very big believers in community outreach. And
No, I
we're-
appreciate y'all.
We're happy to come back and to address further times. And again, by the numbers, East Orange is about 20% of our backlog now. So if we get 20% of them done, there's gonna be a lot less inventory. And as you stated, the bottom line, you know, people may be able to get services and help that they really need to stay in their apartments. So we're happy to help out whatever way we can.
Right. Judge Venable, is there some, I'm gonna have to say, if there's some closing remarks, we're gonna kind of close out tonight. And is there anything that you want to add on that we didn't talk about? And I'm gonna ask you, Judge, is it possible we could come back, circle back next week, if y'all don't mind? Because I would love to have a part 2 to this conversation. I know that it's kind of, you know, well, I'm giving it a week, but, you know, so we can really get to some deep conversation, get the people out there an opportunity to talk about this also.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that. Thank you for the insight, the next insight. Thank you. We would be happy to do so. And I'm just so proud of the team that's here today. I just would like to say why I say notice is so important, because if the tenant does not appear, and we're talking virtual, if the tenant is not present,
That will never happen again. And I'm glad Judge Moore said, you know, we have to let Judge Venable go. You know, that's just my little side joke. But look, I'm gonna do this. Dawn Freeman, do you have any closing remarks? Because you have been great in this task also, and really, I thank all y'all for being here.
We've touched everything. I'll defer to Judge Petrillo if you want to add anything else.
Essex County is the biggest vicinage in the state, and we have great leadership, Judge Venable and Judge Moore in particular. We are very committed to doing this right and to ensuring fairness in process for everyone. It might not go as fast as you like, but I promise you that our leadership is committed that while it might not be speedy, it's going to be right. And we appreciate everyone following the rules, coming when asked to come, and doing what the process requires. That helps you, it helps the other party, it helps the court, it helps the process. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thank you also, Judge. So East Orange, listen, I'm just hoping that the information tonight we embarked on, our landlord and tenant rights. Our guest tonight was an outstanding panel. I hope that all the information that everyone who came on tonight and really got an opportunity to understand what your rights are. I hope that there's tenants on, I hope that there's landlords on, and I hope that it gave you understanding that on both sides of the aisle, each party have rights, right? And when you have rights, you have to do things right when it comes to the courts, right? Because that's who makes the last decision, the court, right? And the numbers that we provided tonight, I know that Precious posted those numbers up. I hope you're able to use those numbers. We're going to ask all of you, right? If we can help in any kind of way, please call the Mayor's Office Constituent Services. That number is 973-266-5151. Any help that we can provide you with, or information or any referrals, we want to be here for you. We're very honored to have this is a great panel tonight. We're going to close out, but what I want to do a little different tonight, Precious, I know there's probably some questions that came through. Is there a whole lot, Precious, a lot of questions that we didn't answer?
There's just one main question, if you want to answer that one before I hand it over to Dr. Griffin.
Yes, go ahead.
Are there any other prior mediation techniques landlords and tenants can observe when dealing with eviction notices outside of the court?
Resources outside of the court for mediation, I can't really say I'm aware of any. Certainly within the court, we have trained settlement personnel who will attempt to assist the parties in mediating a case. But outside resources, other than retaining your own counsel, I can't say that I'm aware of any.
No, there are none, but the new position of landlord-tenant specialist that we referenced, who is going to be the neutral at the first meeting, can certainly discuss and will discuss a mediation resolution with the parties.
Thank you so much. So what I want to do, and I thank our guests who came on tonight for that question. So what I want to do, just something a little different tonight before I close out, because I have another affair that I have to be at. And then what I want to do is bring Dr. Griffin on, right? But we're going to just pause for a few minutes after I introduce Dr. Griffin, so Dr. Griffin can give out the COVID numbers and really give you an update on the direction that the city of East Orange is going and have gone, right? So we're just going to take a quick pause so I can just say, bye to our guests, because we're going to go through the code. If you want to sit here, you're welcome. Dr. Griffin's going to go on, but I have to depart. I have to actually be in New York at a certain time tonight.
Understood.
For another event. And so with that, East Orange, as I always say, please follow us on our Facebook page. Please follow us on Instagram. I know that we have what we call our robocall that we've been calling folks, giving you information. If you need any services throughout the city, call the mayor's office or call the different departments. We just want to also just personally thank everyone, the hundreds of people that came out on Saturday to our citywide cleanup. That is just such an honorable thing where we as citizens of the great city of East Orange, how we take pride in making sure that our city continues to stay clean and green. So all of you who participated, David Tyree from the New York Giants, and we had a Keep America Clean organization. We had Castro, who came out, who sponsored our vests and our brooms and our rakes and our gloves. We thank you so much. But more so, We thank all our young people who got up at 8:30 in the morning and came out with the different organizations right here in the city of East Orange to really show that East Orange pride. And I can tell you on Saturday, the volumes of people that came out shows that, you know what, we do care about East Orange. We do care about our neighbors. We do care about as being tenants, and we care about the stores around us. But again, we have to keep that up. We have to make sure we tell our neighbors to continue to keep their properties clean. Continue to tell your friends, don't throw trash on the ground. Put it in the receptacle. And remind each other that this is our city where we live, right? So I know you're going to do the right thing, East Orange, but again, I just want to thank all of you for partaking in such a fantastic citywide cleanup effort last Saturday, and I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. So what I want to do just for just a couple of minutes, just pause for a minute, to my guests, to the judges, to Dawn Freeman, thank all of you for being here this evening. I appreciate you, but I am going to ask, is it all right, Judge Vanderbilt, can we come back next week? Because I got to get permission from you to just have a part 2 of this conversation next week at my town hall meeting. The judge went on?
Yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully
Okay,
she...
as long as Judge Venable gives us the okay.
I'm on. I just now pressed the mute button back on.
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. It's your show.
encourage everyone to strongly consider the food.
We're just wrapping up, so thank you so much for that full update. Mayor Green wants to come back and do a deeper dive on our COVID-19 updates during our next town hall, but that was a perfect debrief for everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Precious.